Okay, I've decided to redo some of my videos on junk consumer products like this radio. Now, it's actually receiving a station 200 miles away. If you like classic country, it's a nice station to listen to. This radio comes with this little loop antenna, which you probably have discarded if you bought a radio that has an AM and an FM band. Well, the first thing is you absolutely have to have this little loop antenna. Now, as you can hear, the audio is weak and distorted and staticky. Certainly not pleasurable to listen to. So, can you improve this radio? Yes, you can. There are a couple of things that are very simple. First is to rotate this little loop antenna. It's most sensitive to stations coming perpendicular to this axis. So what you want to do is you want to turn it till you get the strongest signal and most static free signal. But there is another thing that you could be doing wrong. You see this big charger block? These are notorious noise sources, so do not put your antenna near this charge block. This one's actually very quiet. There's some that are so noisy you can hear them for 2 blocks. Now, you're hearing this station on 680 where it's licensed. If I tune to 690, you can actually still hear it mixed with a local station. So you go back down in frequency and you can kind of still hear it there. I've just tuned this to a strong local station on 740 where you can hear the station very well. Tune to 730, you still hear it. Tune to 720, there's a little bit of it left. Going up, you can hear it on 750, 760, 770, and then it gets obliterated by crosstalk from another local station on 790. This is the same station appearing 4, 5, 6 places on the dial. That is totally unacceptable. We're going to work on this problem first. It's called selectivity. This radio just doesn't have any when you can hear this same station on several different frequencies. It's going to require some soldering and you're going to have to look for a part. Let me show you what you're looking for. You are looking for a little yellow rectangular cube part. It's called a ceramic filter. I've already taken it off the PC board and put it into a socket so that we can play around with it. If you want to find one on your PC board, you're probably going to have to unsolder it. Alright, I have put in, instead of the little yellow filter, I put in a little black filter. Now let's see how it works. Okay, here it is on 740. Up, still there on 750. Gone off 760. Gone off 770. Gone off 730. And something else is on 730. A station that wasn't there before because it was covered up. So what's going on? This little device is called a vector network analyzer. And I have put the little orange cube onto an adapter board. And for those of you who know this analyzer, vector network analyzer, I have calibrated it on the little board, so it is calibrated correctly in case anybody wants to know. Now, as you can see, the blue trace has a peak in the middle. Now, what I'm trying to do with this filter is to pick up just one station. A radio takes all radio stations and converts it down to one frequency. In this case, 455 kilohertz. As you see, up in the upper right hand corner. And I have the little triangle marker right at 455 kilohertz. But you can see there's a problem. The peak is not there. The peak is a little bit to the left. So this filter is not perfectly centered. Now the other thing about these filters is they're supposed to get rid of stations on either side, which at this scale, I've got 100 kilohertz, so it's 10 stations represented on here. So the adjacent stations are about there and there. So this is really better at receiving the station on an adjacent frequency than it is on a center frequency. Alright, now here's a little black cube. As you can see, it's got 3 peaks, 1, 2, 3, and the middle peak is right in the middle. But what's more important is that over to each side, there's a whole lot more attenuation or stopping the stations on adjacent frequencies. And if you look, this thing is down to 0 effectively on this scale. So this is a much better filter than that little orange one was. But does it help the first problem we had, which was a weak and staticky signal? And the answer is not a whole lot, but some. Something else is in play here, and it's called sensitivity. And that's the ability of a radio to receive distant stations. We're going to have to do something different, and we're going to have to do it here at the antenna. Same station, I promise. Very little static. What'd I do? Well, this was the little frame on which the wire was wound for the antenna. I took that wire off that little frame, it's pretty easy to unwind, and taped it to a hula hoop. Now, my granddaughter will get her hula hoop back, don't worry. But you can see that just making that antenna loop larger has resulted in a dramatic improvement in the received signal strength. These straws represent lines of signal from the station. It's like an electromagnet. The station is one side of the electromagnet, your antenna is the other side, and these waves of magnetic flux are passing through the middle of your loop antenna. Now I've probably got a couple of dozen straws through this little loop, and that's how representative of how many lines of magnetic flux this radio was receiving using the little loop. Now when I unwrap that wire and put it on this hula hoop, as you can see, I'd have to have many thousands of straws to go through that hula hoop. So I'm intercepting a lot more lines of magnetic flux from the radio station, making it clearer. I should mention that if you want to do this, any frame will work provided it's non-conductive. You can make it out of a hula hoop, you can make it out of PVC pipe, you can make it out of wood. It just has to be large enough to hold one turn of wire from your little antenna. But suppose that's too large. You don't want to have something that big in your house. There is another way, but it requires you to go find a ferrite bar antenna from an old radio, and a pretty big one. And this is a ferrite bar. It's not a piece of plastic, it's not a piece of steel, it's a special type of metal called ferrite. It's a very tightly packed and pressed ground up material that's been fashioned into a bar. You can find them in old radios, and let me show you what you can do. Now right now I still have it on 680, but I just took the wire off the hula hoop, so there is no audio, there's no signal there at all. And this is about 10 turns of that black wire from the little loop wound around the ferrite bar. And you can hear I've got the station back from San Antonio. But the reception isn't that great. The big loop is the best way to go. If you do this, you can improve the reception a little bit by sliding the wire up and down the coil until you find a strong spot, When you find it, use tape or beeswax to secure it down. So what's going on here? Well, as you can see, the loop is a lot smaller than it would have been on this tiny frame. So why am I getting good reception with such a tiny loop? Well, this ferrite, being a special material, is actually concentrating the lines of magnetic flux from the station into that tiny coil. Now, if you look in older radios, virtually all of them have a little bitty loop along one of these ferrite bars. Since the reception improvement isn't that great, they just went to these little bitty mechanical loops. Some of them are a little larger and work fairly well. Personally, I've taken all of mine and put them on big wooden frames so that I get decent reception on AM radios. But let me show you what may be the least expensive and easiest way. Same station on a decent radio. This is a GE Super Radio. You can find them on eBay. There's several models. There's an original, there's a Super Radio 2 and a Super Radio 3. The 3 has some quality problems, so I would try to get an original or a Super Radio 2. You can get a really nice one for about $50 or $60 on eBay. And you can hear that station is loud and clear. You won't have a problem hearing it, or any other distant station, at least on AM. This is not a radio. Some of you were probably wondering where you can get the little black ceramic filters for AM. This is a wireless mouse. You probably have had one and it's in your junk drawer. You can find them at garage sales. You can find them on eBay for a few dollars. You're not looking for the type with the little bitty dongles. You're looking for the one with a great big dongle like this. And inside, there's the little black ceramic filter, LTM 455EW. It has 5 leads. 3 of them are together on one edge, the other 2 are in the other corners. The 3 along one edge are ground, and the ones in the corners are in and out. So it takes a little adapting to get this to fit into 3 holes, but basically you take the ones that are on one edge and you put them all in the middle hole and use the other holes for the input and output. The situation is the same on FM. This is a strong local station on 104.1 and 104.3 and 103.9. So you're covering up 3 frequencies with one local station. In this case, you're looking for a little brown part. I have it sticking up from the white socket right now. It's an FM ceramic filter. These 2 have different widths. I put in one that is half the bandwidth, and you can see it's almost gone from 104.3 and 103.9. You also get very clear reception on a rim shot about 80 miles away, which is kind of remarkable with a 2-foot piece of wire that's hanging off the back of the radio. And there's also a low power station that's 22 watts nearby. These come in different widths too. In this one, the adjacent station is there and there, which means this filter will pick up 3 stations at once. It's so wide. This filter is a much better filter. As you can see, the adjacent station would be here and here, so you have much more rejection of adjacent frequencies with a narrower ceramic filter for FM. This one's also centered quite well. And that's it. I left the narrow filters in, and I'm going to put this in a nice little housing near the radio. And I'll have my clock radio for my media room back with a much improved radio. And here's a surprise. WWL New Orleans making its appearance in Houston daytime. That is a test of a really good radio. So, I've improved this far more than I thought I could.